Good morning. I'm MJ from Lioness Publications. And today we're going to talk about Thomas Massie. And I'm sure most people are saying, who's that? He happens to be a representative in the House. And he is one of the people that is standing up. He's a conservative, part of the GOP party, and sort of a known rebel in the GOP party. And he, along with Marjorie Greene, are standing up for the victims, Epstein's victims. They were involved in the speech that the victims gave on Wednesday. I decided at that point that both Massie and Greene's charts really merit looking at. You may not agree with all their politics. You may not like them, but they are stepping forth to give a voice to the victims. You may not agree with giving a voice to the victims, or you may, but I think they are both standing up here, which is important to know. So let's take a look at Massie's chart, and we're going to look at his natal chart with the transits, natal chart with the progressions, and the natal chart with the solar arc. Now, let's start off with one of the angles he has that came about on 9/2 of 25, so September 2nd. He has Saturn trining Jupiter. What is this? It's a great configuration to be able to get things done. When it's trine Jupiter. I believe I said conjunct. When you have Saturn, that is when it's in a good angle to a planet it gets along with. It means that it's going to be able to put focus in. When this is on Jupiter, it means that he can take advantage of the opportunities he is given. And the Saturn focuses him, gives him drive, gives him the push to actually do that. So this is possibly one of the things that is bringing him to actually fight for the victims, to make sure that they have a voice. Now, it also gives him an elevated public platform. So it's not flashy, but people are going to be listening to him. I mean, other people that would join this may be doing it for the limelight. Massie probably isn't. He just is not typically that type. This is also a legacy building moment for him. So this could become important enough that it becomes part of his legacy and moves him into different places. Now, following that on 9/4, what we have is Saturn squaring Mercury. And that's understandable, because once the victims are talking, what happens is that we're going to have intense scrutiny, structural pressure, and affects pressure from who? The White House. Criticism, being censored. Now, especially since there was mention that the victims are not going to name people, but they are going to make a list. And they can't name people because they will be subject to lawsuits, such that, as other newspapers have noted, it will put them in the poorhouse. Versus Massie and Greene could actually debate this in the House, and when they use a special thing with the debate, they are not liable for anything they're saying. And that, again, we have to think whether that's good or bad, but it is a way to get the names out without any liability being placed on someone. Now, on 9/5, literally, we have Saturn opposing Pluto. And this is a generational aspect, so it's not just going to happen to Massie at this time. It's going to happen to everyone that was born around the time of Massie. And what this is institutional resistance to what's going on. So if we come back and look at that situation, it's the White House literally telling everyone in the House that they should not be signing on to what Massie and Greene are putting out. So they're trying to tap this down. So in effect, it's control coming down. And Saturn, in this case, would be the structure of the government. Now we move from there into, and that's about 9-5, as I mentioned. So that's probably happening now. There's going to be a lot of pressure to stop this in its tracks. On 10-3 and again on 12-19, what we have is a Jupiter coming up to oppose the Sun. Jupiter, in most cases, when it's in a difficult angle, which an opposition is, it doesn't tend to be as bad as some of the other planets can be, but it's not a guarantee. In this case, it's opposing his Sun, which is his identity. So what's going to happen here? Jupiter inflates. It's literally going to be putting him in the spotlight. It's going to be giving him visibility. But it can also inflate his ego. So he might start getting, very addicted to this publicity. It can also, and this is where the conflict is, because he's out there, he's going to be bringing up a lot of hatred from a lot of groups, and we know which groups those are. So difficult position. Now moving into the middle of October, October 16th, we're going to have Jupiter trine his Mars. This is going to give him, Jupiter is opportunities and on what? His actions. So he can actually get a lot done here. He can get some momentum. He can start building a coalition. And this is calculated. It's not reckless. The Jupiter doesn't overdo anything here. It just gives the opportunities to get things done. So this is the perfect time to move all this stuff and, get that chessboard set up and all the pieces in place. As we move to the end of October, 10-27, we have Neptune trining his Jupiter. This is a great one. Neptune is, in effect, his vision, and Jupiter is expansion. So he can actually expand out his beliefs. He can be very visionary here. He can be very inspiring on what he's saying. And this actually brings in the piece about social justice. In effect, this is maybe one of his ideological beliefs, that everyone needs to have justice or to be heard. And in this case, this is a perfect time for him to bring that up. It's also the ability for him, in effect, to be sort of moral guide when it comes to this, to sort of explain why it's important, that victims need a voice, and that in this case, the perpetrators would have been very, very rich people, very, very rich men. Okay? Important to explain that. Important to explain why it's wrong. Important to explain why it rots away at our democracy to have things like this happen. Now, as you move into November, it becomes difficult for him. And I suspect this is the time that they may actually move to do some actions if they haven't already done it in October. The first thing they come up against is Neptune squaring Mercury. Lies, lies, lies. Neptune is the illusion, the fogginess, squaring against what he's saying. So, this case, he needs to make sure he's clear, that there are no illusions in what he's saying. He needs to make sure that his facts are right, because he's going to be factually challenged. There may be misinformation. There may be mental distortion. So he needs to make sure he's got all his dominoes in a row here. Because they're going to be calling lies, lies. Next, you move to 11-7. We have Neptune opposing Pluto. Generational aspect, so it's going to be happening to more than Massie at that time. It's going to be happening to people that were born around the same period. In this case, this is a resetting of the power. Ideology confusion. There's distortion, loss of influence. So at this point, it could be that he is causing this to the government against the powers that be. Or it could be that they are impacting that on him. So we'll need to see what's happening at this point. Who's got the power and who doesn't. But right now, Massie has power. If he can get that list of names and put it out there. But He needs to protect himself. Now, on 1110, we have Uranus opposing Jupiter. Uranus changes, rebellion. In this case, you're going to see shifts in alliance. So it could be people that were for him, all of a sudden back out. Radical change, alienation, break from tradition, and also maybe a public backlash. So they are going to probably, be trying to change his opportunities here. In effect, to create changes, sudden rebellions. It could be a time when maybe the friends of the White House come out against him and they start with threats and things. Now, when you come to 1114, you've got Uranus in conjunct Mercury. So here we've got the break and adjust. It's a quick, typically configuration, but it's important in that it breaks. So there's something with what he's thinking, whatever, that in effect gets broken by something sudden. So unpredictable event, maybe he's going to be incoherent, or some of the strategy is incoherent, and possibly impulsive decisions. So a time to be just sort of wary, but a time for the public to watch, see what's going on. Now, as we move at this point into 1116, it becomes a little easier for him. Uranus is going to be trining Pluto, and that's also a generational angle. But what that indicates is that he's going to have the capability to reshape institutions. So his voice is going to be heard. Sweeping reforms. And he can also be a transformational figure. That's important for his legacy. Now, when we move a little bit further into 12:9, what we have is Jupiter is going to be trining Mars. This strategic action. So again, he can bring opportunities to what he's doing and actually push those through. So he can get a lot done. It also brings him courage. So Jupiter inflates, and in this case, maybe his ego, okay? His ability to act, and that could be a good thing. Momentum, and in effect, behind his proposals. So whatever he puts through, he can actually get it done during this time. Also, a lot of capability here. So there's a lot to unpack in his transits, but there's a lot going on with this, and it's important. So he could end up being, and I only did it to the end of this year, but I do want to touch on a progression. The progression, one of the points is that on 8/17/2026, we have Jupiter conjuncting Mars. And this is going to be a few months before the elections. And this is actually good for him because what it's going to do is give him opportunities. In what communities? Think of it. Venus is like voters, your voters. So this is going to be expanding his voters. I haven't looked at the transits that are going on at that time, so there could be some things that detract from this. But this could be an indication that he actually picks up a lot of voters, which is great. Now, let's move on to the solar arc. In the solar arc, what I saw last year, and this is at around 11/2/2024, Pluto, excuse me, oh, my voice. Pluto was actually conjuncting Mars, and this was at a time of the elections. And during that election, what happened was the GOP had actually brought up another candidate to go against him. So you can see that Pluto was the power against his actions, or it could have been the power for his actions. Hard to tell where Pluto's going to end up. But in effect, he won against this other person that was being brought up to take him out. So that shows you that he won this last time around. So he does have a good following in his community. We also have 12/23 of this year. we have Mercury conjuncting the North Node, which is where you take in. And I'm bringing this up because it's sort of a comic point. And right now, it looks like he's stepping into a point that he is in a legacy defining moment. So he can do a speech, he can do a policy, he can do a statement that is going to define a lot here. His words are going to carry weight in whatever he's doing. And I assume, I could be wrong, but I assume it's going to be in trying to get justice for the victims. Now, this is going to be a movement, and he may end up being the figure of that movement. But what's important here, and this is where the comic comes in, he needs to clarify the vision, clarify why this is important. Most people are going to have, maybe, what was the harm to these people, to these women? Some of them, were on the streets. They had a good home. Some of them, were paid for, they lived at his house, Epstein's house. He needs to define what was wrong with this. He needs to define it so everyone can understand, and maybe he can do that. So again, could be a legacy defining moment for him. Let's hope he's up to it. And he doesn't take the easy way out. I hope you enjoyed this and have a great day. Bye now.